Hello, and welcome to Apparitions and Alibis, Episode 3. I am your host, AJ Stallman, and this is a true crime story. Hold on to your panties because it is a long one, roughly 9 pages actually. There are so many names and so many things that happen in this story, and I will do my best, as I always do, to make it easy to follow along and enjoyable to listen to. While searching for a topic for this episode, I noticed that there's a lot of information on older cases, but when it comes to newer cases from like 2010 and so, there's really only like a paragraph. I wonder what's up with that. Anywho, because of this, I found this very dramatic story of Floyd Allen, his family, and the Hillsville Massacre. We are waddling to the Wild Wild West days, partner. Well, Wild Wild East, it's in Virginia. But there are cowboys and deputies and horses with buggies. John Wayne would be proud. Well, maybe not. This family's messed up. But I have my coffee, I have my dogs, I have my honey bagel. Let's do this. Floyd Allen was born on July 5th, 1856. He was the chief patriarch of Carroll County's leading family. They owned large farmlands as well as a successful general store and were active in local politics, illegal liquor manufacturing, and bootlegging. As a fixture in the community, Floyd was noted for his generosity, quick temper, and easily injured pride. An angry, sensitive soul, it seems. The family were proud Democrats. As a result, many Allens held local offices such as constable, deputy sheriff, tax collector, and supported various political friends for office. Now, Floyd had a history of violent altercations, including shooting a man in North Carolina, beating up a police officer, and later shooting his own cousin. In May of 1889, Floyd's brother Garland and Sidna were tried for carrying concealed pistols and assaulting a group of 13 men. 2 against 13. They had to be some bad asses. That's crazy. In July 1889, the Carroll County Court charged Floyd for the assault as well, but the Commonwealth's attorney dropped the case. In September, after pleading no contest to the assault, Garland and Sidna were fined $5 each, plus court costs, and the prosecutor dropped the weapons charge. Judge Jackson, an attorney in Roanoke, stated that Floyd Allen was perhaps the man of the clan, overbearing, vindictive, high-tempered, brutal, with no respect for the law, and little or no regard for human life. During his term in office, Floyd was several times charged with violations of law. In several instances, he escaped indictment, and Judge Jackson believed because the witnesses were afraid to testify to the fact before the grand jury. Judge Jackson recalled a trial in 1904 in which Floyd was convicted of assaulting a neighbor, Noah Combs. That year, Floyd wanted to buy a farm owned by one of his brothers, but could not agree on a price. Noah Combs wanted the land as well, and he wanted it bad enough to pay the asking price, and bought it in spite of Floyd's warnings to not butt in. Not long after, Floyd shot Combs, who recovered, and was indicted to an hour in jail and a $100 fine, plus court cost. Floyd immediately posted bail pending an appeal. In the next term of court, Floyd produced a pardon by the governor, suspending the jail sentence. In another instance, arguing over the administration of their father's estate, Floyd got into a gunfight with his own brother Jasper, who was a local constable. Floyd hit Jasper in the head, which struck a glancing blow on Jasper's scalp, while one of Jasper's bullets hit Floyd in the chest. His pistol empty, Floyd decided to beat his brother with the butt of his revolver, sentenced to a $100 fine and an hour in jail. Floyd refused to go, saying that he would never spend a minute in jail as long as the blood flowed through his veins. Floyd's body bore the scars of 13 bullet wounds, 5 of them inflicted by his own family members. Despite their history of violence, the Allens held a considerable political power, and Floyd had a reputation for courage. In 1908, while serving as special deputies, Floyd and a relative named Henry were charged with unlawful assault upon prisoners held in their custody who had reportedly resisted arrest. On February 1st of 1908, the Allens were convicted of the charge and sentenced to 10 days in jail and $10. Only a month later, a petition was granted by Governor Swanson restoring their political right to hold office. They had to have some dirt on these people. He got out of jail how many times? Not even having to go in? In 1910, Sidney Allen was tried in the United States Court at Greensboro, North Carolina for making $20 counterfeit coins. The federal court in Greensboro found him not guilty, while Sidney's accomplice, Preston Dickens, was found guilty and sentenced to serve 5 years in federal prison. Sidney was retried and found guilty and was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. Sidney promptly appealed and gained a new trial. One night in December 1910 or 1911, we're not really sure, 2 of Floyd's nephews, Wesley and Sidney Edwards, yes, there's 2 Sidneys in the story, attended a corn shucking bee in Hillsville. A corn shucking bee, guys. While there, Wesley kissed a girl who was romantically linked to another dude, Will Thomas. This soon led to an altercation between Will and Wesley, as it usually does, and at a church service the next morning conducted by Garland Allen, Will reportedly called out Wesley into a fight. According to Wesley, Will and 3 friends assaulted him, and he defended himself with the help of his brother Sidney Edwards, who rushed to join the fight. Following a complaint lodged by Wesley's father, Wesley and Sidney were charged with disorderly conduct, assault with a deadly weapon, disturbing public worship service, and other violations. But rather than face arrest, the 2 guys fled over the state line to Surry County, North Carolina, where they found jobs in a granite quarry. Deputy Goad of Carroll County obtained a new warrant for the brothers' arrest, notifying the sheriff in Surry County, who arrested them both. The brothers were picked up by Deputy Samuel along with a driver by the name of Peter Easter. When they reached the state line, they put the brothers in their Ford Cedar buggy. There was only 1 set of handcuffs, and because Sidney had tried to escape a couple times, Wesley was handcuffed to the front of the buggy, sitting beside Easter, and Sidney was tied in the back seat beside the deputy. On the way to the courthouse, the buggy passed by several properties that belonged to the Allen family. Floyd met the buggy south of Sidney's home as he was on his way to his own home. Deputy Samuel pulled a gun, later found out to not be operational, and ordered Floyd to move away. Floyd rode past the buggy to Sidney's store, where he then blocked the narrow road with his mare. Samuel again pulled his gun on Floyd, and a fight ensued. Floyd beat Samuel with his own pistol. Wesley tried to grapple with Easter, but Easter got away and fired a shot at Floyd, hurting Floyd's finger. Floyd Allen then released his nephews. Easter escaped on foot to the home of an acquaintance, where he telephoned the sheriff at Hillsville, and Deputy Samuel was left lying in a ditch unconscious. Floyd later stated that he never intended to have had the boys completely set free. He just wanted them to be released of their manacles and treated as humans instead of like livestock. Says the man that was accused of mistreating inmates that were resisting arrest. You know what? Whatever, Floyd. You don't even know. Making stuff up. That's some hypocritical stuff, friends. Though some variations of the buggy event does say that the brothers are being dragged behind the buggy instead of in it, but we'll never really know. On the following Monday, Wesley and Sidney Edwards were turned over to the court by Floyd himself, and the two brothers were soon tried and convicted of their crimes. Wesley was sentenced to 60 days and his brother 30 days, which were served outside of jail on work release. Floyd Allen was indicted for assault and battery. Shortly before the trial, a rumor that the Allens were intimidating witnesses was called to the attention of the court. George Macy called Constable Jasper Allen and Floyd Allen to the bar and told them of the allegations. Jasper stated that it wasn't true. In response, the judge told the two men if they could not enforce law in Carroll County, then he would remove them and bring in state troops if necessary to maintain order. A witness later testified that Floyd Allen had remarked that he would not let any man talk to him that way. After roughly a year of delays, Floyd was finally brought to trial on March 13, 1912. Rumors appeared in the community that Floyd sent word to Deputy Samuel that he would kill Samuel if he testified against him. Allen later denied this, but the threat, and whoever sent it, was enough to make the deputy leave the state the same night it was delivered. With Samuel out of state, this made the prosecutor, William Foster, rely heavily on Easter's testimony. In the grand jury testimony, Floyd admitted to roughing up Samuel, but not with the intent of releasing the prisoners. That there Samuel was abusing the boys. He had them handcuffed and tied up with a rope. I just can't bear to see anyone drug around. That was me pretending to be Floyd. I hope you enjoyed it. Fearful of the Allens' reactions and having received death threats, many officials in the courtroom armed themselves. At least two of the participants had told friends they were expecting trouble. There were many Allen clan among the spectators in the courtroom, and most of them had pistols. Sidna and Claude were in the northeast corner of the courtroom, standing on benches to see over the crowd. Frail Allen sat in the back of the courtroom, and the Edward boys stood on benches next to the north wall. When the jury returned the guilty verdict against Floyd, sentencing him to 1 year in the penitentiary, Floyd Allen reportedly stated to Judge Macy, "If you sentence me on that verdict, I will kill you." The judge at once proceeded to sentence Floyd to 1 year's imprisonment. I can just picture the judge rolling his eyes please. According to Floyd's defense attorney, David Bolin, Floyd hesitated a moment and then he arose. He looked at me like a man was about to say something and had hardly made up his mind what he was going to say. But as he got straight, he moved to my left, I would say 5 or 6 feet, and he seemed to gain his speech. He said something like this: "I just tell you, I ain't a-going." At this point, shots broke out in the courtroom. Accounts differ as to who actually fired the shots. Many claim that Allen initiated confrontation by pulling a gun in court. In his defense testimony, Allen stated that Sheriff Webb fired first, but that shot missed Allen, to which point Deputy Goad fired and hit Allen, causing him to fall. When he fell, he actually landed on his defense attorney, who said, "Floyd, they're going to kill me shooting at you." Floyd Allen then said it was only then did he draw his own weapon and began shooting. After a few shots, the Allen clan left the courthouse, armed with both pistols and 12-gauge pump shotguns, shooting as they ran. Judge Macy, Sheriff Webb, Commonwealth's Attorney Foster, the jury foreman, Augustus Fowler, as well as a 19-year-old girl named Elizabeth Ayers, were all hit in the crossfire and died of their wounds. More than 50 bullets were recovered from the shooting scene. Elizabeth Ayers was a witness who had testified against Floyd Allen. and was actually shot in the back, attempting to leave the courthouse. 7 others were wounded, including Deputy Goad and Floyd Allen. Floyd, too badly wounded in the hip, thigh, and knee to leave town, instead spent the night in Elliott Hotel accompanied by his eldest son, Victor, who was later found to not have been involved in the shootout. Upon his arrest by deputies at the hotel, Floyd attempted to slit his own throat with a pocket knife, but was overpowered before he could complete the job. Virginia law held that when a sheriff died, his deputies lost all legal powers, so Carroll County, guys, is short, but it's a tongue twister. So Carroll County was left without any law enforcement by the shooting. Troops were brought to Carroll County immediately. The governor called on the Baldwin Felds Detective Agency to find those responsible for the shooting and arrest them. Rewards for those in the Allen clan ranged from $500 to $1,000. Within a month, all parties were in custody, minus Wesley and Sidna Edwards. A manhunt started for the remaining Allen fugitives, and several groups of detectives and local deputies searched the surrounding countryside. The U.S. Revenue Service sent an agent, Deputy Faddis, to investigate reports of illegal liquor trafficking by the Allens. Agent Faddis and 4 men raided Floyd Allen's property, seizing illegal stills and 50 gallons of moonshine. 2 more illegal stills were found at Sidna Edwards' house. Just a reminder that Sidna Edwards is the nephew and is the nephew of Floyd Allen, and Sidna Allen is Floyd's brother. Claude Allen and Sidna Edwards, so the nephew, were placed into custody after a brief search. Frail Allen gave himself to detectives in the company of his father Jasper, who was apparently concerned his son might be killed while being apprehended. If you hear something weird in the background, it's rain. It sounds so weird. I'm sorry. I don't even know where I was now. However, Sidna Allen and his nephew Wesley Edwards fled the state. After several months of chase, the 2 were located by detectives in Iowa after a tip from an informant. Sidna Allen swore until the end of his life that the informant was Wesley's fiancé. Others state that the fiancé's father, who had never liked Wesley, tipped off the detectives that his daughter was going to meet him to be wed. Whichever way it happened, the men were arrested and returned to Carroll County to stand trial. Are these guys ever not in a courtroom? I haven't talked about court this much in my entire life. Ugh. Can y'all still hear it? I hope not, because it sounds like someone's just like peeing in a metal bucket, and it's really gross. I really hope no one's actually peeing in a metal bucket outside of my door. So Floyd was the first to be brought to trial on the charges of murdering Judge Macy, Sheriff Webb, and Attorney Foster. The prosecutor's case was based on the information of a conspiracy by Allens to kill the trial judge, local law enforcement, and others who have wronged them in the event of a guilty verdict. A travel salesman from Roanoke testified to having sold Sidna Allen a lot of ammunition. He sold the defendant 500 each of 32 and 38 caliber pistol cartridges and 500 12-gauge shotgun shells. Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? Is there something that the podcast world is just missing that you want to put in it? Well, do what I did and download Anchor. If you haven't heard of it, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's totally free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast, and it's all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, so I went to see what that awful noise was, and alas, it was not someone peeing in a metal bucket, which I am very thankful for. But while roaming around the house trying to figure out what it was, I was like, oh my gosh, we just had a horrible storm. What if it's water like hitting the hardwood floors? So I'm running through, and like it's louder when I get close to the bedroom window. And I peek outside, and there's a stick. There's a stick in the AC unit, and that's what's making the noise. So I went outside and I removed the stick, and I didn't hurt myself or anyone around me, aka the dogs, and everything's fine. So now we can talk about Floyd Allen and this craziness of this massacre. Like, what? Killing so many people just because you don't want to go to jail for a year. Just because your last name is Allen doesn't mean that you're above the law, Floyd. All right, let's get back on track. I've already wasted enough of your time. There remains dispute even today on who fired first. The prosecution attempted to show that Floyd and Claude Allen prompted the gun battle by standing and pulling their pistols and opening fire. One of the prosecution's witnesses, Walter Tipton, who was in the courtroom at the time actually representing Floyd Allen, Tipton testified to seeing Claude Allen in the courthouse and saw him with a pistol raised in both hands as if he had just fired it. And then he looked at Floyd, and Floyd also had his pistol raised with both hands as if he had just fired it. And then he saw Floyd actually fire his pistol. I don't know why I'm saying all of a sudden. Sorry. It might be the coffee. I'm not gonna lie. For their part, the Allen family claimed that Deputy Goad was the one who fired first, prompted by a long-standing vendetta that was held against the family. The defense next tried to show that it was the deputy who shot Elizabeth Ayers in exchange of fires with the Allens, which Goad denied. Years later, it was said that another deputy, Deputy Quesenberry, confessed on his deathbed to have started the shooting. Others say that Floyd started the shooting, and even others say that Sheriff Webb accidentally discharged his own revolver. Nobody really knows, they're just making stuff up. David Bolin, who was also present during the shooting and was defending Floyd at the time as well, was the first witness to be examined by the prosecution at Floyd Allen's murder trial. Bolin had been standing next to Floyd Allen and was facing Judge Macy when the first shot struck the judge's robes. Bolin testified that the first shot was done by Claude Allen and that Claude's pistol shot along with a second shot by Sidna Allen, killing Judge Macy. Yet another lawyer who witnessed the shooting stated that several young men were standing on the court benches at the back of the room firing pistols, like Custer's cavalrymen at Little Bighorn. So they were aimed and ready. In his testimony at his murder trial, Floyd admitted that he had fired at Deputy Clerk Quesenberry and again twice more at other unknown persons once he had left the courthouse. Deputy Edwards, who was there that day of the shooting, testified in a conversation with Floyd Allen just after he had been indicted. Floyd said that Attorney Foster would not give him a show, but if he did, there would be a big hole put in the courthouse. By his own admission, Deputy Goad fired the second shot at Floyd, hitting him in the pelvis. He stated reason that he thought Floyd's fumbling with his sweater buttons was prelude to drawing his pistol. In the gunfight, Goad was hit by 4 bullets, but he recovered just fine. The Hillsville undertaker who prepared the body of Sheriff Webb for his burial testified that the sheriff was shot no less than 5 times. Everyone just aiming at the sheriff. 1 bullet entered the back and ranged upward, lodging directly under the collarbone. A second shot entered the back about 4 inches lower, while a third shot cut the sheriff across the chin. The 4th shot entered through the left hip and passed through the abdomen. The 5th and final shot went into the calf of the leg, his pants still holding the .32 caliber bullet. Another attorney who was in the building at the time of the shooting recalls seeing the crowd running out of the courthouse and recognized Floyd and Sidna as the last to leave the room, both of them following and firing as they backed out, apparently in response to fire coming from within the courthouse. The attorney also said he heard Floyd Allen say, "I am shot, but I got the damn scoundrel." Guys, I'm a mess today. I'm so sorry. When it came to Claude Allen's trial for the murder of Attorney Foster, Judge Bolin was again the star witness for the prosecution. Bolin confirmed that he saw Claude fire the first shot at Judge Macy, then saw Claude advance in the direction of the court officers where Attorney Foster was standing. For his part, Claude admitted to firing his pistol while in the courtroom. Claude testified that it was Sidna Allen firing just about the time he saw Deputy Goad firing. Sidna Edwards, Floyd's nephew, testified that he was not armed the day of the shooting and that he did not like to carry guns. He denies shooting and stated that he did not see who fired the first shot, but thought it came from near Deputy Goad's desk. Sidna Edwards had scalded his foot years back and was partially lame because of it. He limped out of the courthouse and rode his mother's horse back to his home. How do you get out without getting shot? If you limping. Right. Sidna Allen, Floyd's brother, denied that he shot Judge Macy or that he fired at Attorney Foster, Sheriff Webb, or Juror Fowler. He claimed that when the shooting started, he fired 5 times at Deputy Goad and Deputy Sheriff Gillespie, for the reason that both men were shooting at him. After shooting 5 times, he dropped to his knees and reloaded his revolver. He then stated that when he left the courthouse, Deputy Goad followed behind him, shooting him through the arm where it lodged in his left side. He fired back at Goad on the courthouse steps, but denied shooting at Treasurer Marshall. May 18th of 1912, Floyd Allen was tried for first-degree murder of Attorney Foster and was found guilty by the jury. His stoic exterior gone, he wept freely as the verdict was given. July 1912, after 3 separate trials, Claude Allen was convicted of first-degree murder for the killings of Attorney Foster and second-degree murder of the killing of Judge Macy. For their roles in the shooting, Floyd and Claude were sentenced to death by electrocution. Sidna Allen, Floyd's brother, received 35 years in prison for the voluntary manslaughter for Attorney Foster and for second-degree murder of Judge Macy. Sidna Allen also pled guilty to second-degree murder for the shooting of Sheriff Webb and was sentenced to 18 years imprisonment. Wesley Edwards drew 9 years for each count of murder for the slaying of Foster, Macy, and Webb, a total of 17 years. Sidna Allen, Floyd's nephew, pled guilty in August of 1912 to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 15 years penitentiary. Floyd Allen was tried August 1912 after confessing to shooting Foster and was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Floyd Allen and Sidney Edwards were pardoned by Governor Trinkle in 1922, while Sidney Allen and Wesley Edwards were pardoned by the same governor in 1926. Victor Allen and Barnett Allen were acquitted. Bird Marion, a neighbor and cousin to the Allens, had all charges against him dropped. Accounts differ as to whether this was because of the lack of evidence or because Marion became a state witness and admitted his role in aiding the Allens. Shortly after the Allens trial, law enforcement officers found a still in an old house on Bird's farm, and he was arrested for making illegal liquor. He was tried in federal court, found guilty, and sentenced to a year in federal prison. He began his sentence August 1913 and died of pneumonia in prison that November 25th. Allen's death sentence was deeply unpopular with the Allen supporters in the county, but many other residents were shocked by the deaths of so many people over Floyd Allen's refusal to serve a year in prison and were not sympathetic. Governor Mann, who received death threats the same handwriting as the threats previously delivered to the trial judge, had to cut a trip to Pennsylvania after learning his lieutenant governor had attempted to commute the Allen sentences in his absence, instigating a brief constitutional power struggle between the two men. Governor Mann refused a request to commute the death sentences to life in prison, and Floyd was electrocuted March 28, 1913 at 11:20 p.m., with his son Claude going to the electric chair 11 minutes later. After a public display of the bodies at a funeral parlor, the Allens were buried in the Whistler Cemetery in Cana, Virginia. For years, it was alleged that the men were buried under a headstone that read in part, "Judicially murdered by the state of Virginia over the protests of more than 100,000 of its citizens." However, photographic proof, Photographic proof of this headstone inscription has never surfaced, though hundreds of photos exist and other items relating to the event. And there's even a reward offering for the photograph of this inscription. So, go digging through your grandma's attics. Maybe someone in your ancestry has a photo of it. Properties of Sidney and Floyd were confiscated and sold at auction, forcing Sidney Allen's wife and two young daughters to live in a rented quarters and work minimal jobs until Sidney's pardon. Floyd Allen's son Victor bought his father's house so his mother would not have to move. In 1921, however, he moved his family to New Jersey. Jasper Allen, Floyd's brother, lost his job as constable as a result of the Hillsville shooting, but that didn't end things for him. March 17, 1916, Jasper had stopped for the night in a roadhouse near Mount Airy, North Carolina, where he encountered Will McGraw, a moonshine hauler. A dispute between them ensued about the Hillsville tragedy, and during the confrontation, McGraw drew a gun and shot Allen twice, killing him instantly. Jasper was buried near his home in Carroll County in the presence of thousands of mourners. So, from this massacre, Thornton Massey, Lewis Webb, William Foster, Augustus Fowler, and Nancy Elizabeth Ayers all died from their wounds because of the gunfight. Wounded was Floyd Allen, Sidney Allen, Dexter Goad, Christopher Kane, Andrew Howlett, Elihu Gillespie, and Stuart Worrell. The home of Sidney Allen still stands in Fancy Gap, Virginia. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And that is the Allen family, the Hillsville Massacre, and the downfall of the Allen family because Floyd wouldn't serve his 1-year jail sentence. My brain is so dead now. That is so much information with everything this family did. And then for the public to still stand behind them and be angered for the deaths of Floyd and Claude, just... they were bad men. Don't support bad men. Because they're bad. Man, the 1910s were wild. Yeehaw! I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to talking at you soon. Have a great day, evening, night, whatever it is while you're listening. Don't be like Floyd Allen. Be nice. Don't shoot people. If you do something bad, take your consequences and then move on. Thank you, and peace out.